Good evening, good evening, everybody. Welcome to a very special series that's going to start on the Blue Abroad channel. This is Trade Chat. It's silly season. It's amongst us, and we know we've got quite a bit of news to get through. The idea of these shows is to go through some of the notable news and sort of try and extract what's fact and what's fiction. Get some idea as to who you're thinking we should be targeting or who we shouldn't be targeting, and really just have a chat amongst ourselves. So we've got a pretty big first up show. There's quite a bit of news to get through. I wanted to wait until we accumulated a fair chunk of news and whatnot before we started this. Depending on how much news we get on a day-to-day basis, we could be doing this daily. But if things dry up, we might not. So that's that. I'm going to start off with, I think, the item on the agenda that really is going to kick things off. I've got Dan with me. G'day, mate.
You all right? How we doing?
We're doing fantastic, mate. We're doing well. What's happening in your world? Tell me a little bit about this jersey. What is this?
This is the mighty Gers, the mighty Rangers, my number one soccer team in the UK. So part of my upbringing, brought up by Scottish household. So massive Rangers fan. Big game this weekend against Celtic. So
yep.
I'll be pumped up all week.
Love it, mate. Love it. I feel like, well, just before we get started, I'm just going to run through the agenda just for everyone listening, so they can understand what's actually going on in this show. So we're going to start off. Dan's going to give us his Stephen Coniglio rant. If you haven't quite watched his video that he just made, I highly recommend you do. It's Dan. It's you never cease to amaze me, but you just keep bringing out great work. So well done on that. We're gonna go on the Stephen Coniglio rant. Then we're gonna have a look at the Carlton out of contract players. Have a quick chat about them. See what you all think. Then we'll head on and we'll look at Brandon Ellis, Jack Martin, Sam Gray, and then we'll cap off and I'll tell you a little bit about. Actually, I might do this now. We're going to do the Blue Abroad Awards show. So basically, for those of you who haven't seen it, we've created an event. It's going to be exactly what you're looking at right now. It's going to be a live stream. Dan and we're going to run through the awards for the year. We've got a bunch of highlights, and you're all going to vote for them. So we've got, for you guys, there's 6 categories for you to vote for. There's Goal of the Year, Mark of the Year, Hit of the Year, Recruit of the Year, Player of the Year, and Most Improved. So you will all vote on that, and then we'll announce the winner once we tally up all the votes. And so that'll be Saturday night while we've got the bye, and no footy to be watching. So who would you rather be watching than Dan and myself have a bit of a laugh? So it should be good. So now that that's out of the way, Dan, do you mind kicking us off? I mean, we know the news. Stephen Coniglio has signed for 7 years. He was obviously our big target, the big fish that we would have liked to have had at the club. You have definitely caught the attention of a few punters out there who messaged me throughout the day asking me how you were. I told them that I hadn't heard from you. So I appreciate you coming out. I appreciate you coming out from your cave to tell us a little bit about Stephen Coniglio. Matt, how are you feeling?
Well, I avoided doing a Michael Hutchins, so I was close. So I've just avoided In Excess, Duran for a couple of days. What can I say? My father, who brought me up, World War II veteran, used to tell me about the French. You never trust a man that values wine above women. And I suppose you could translate that to the Italians as well. What a complete scumbucket. Hey, I will never look at a yacht again in the same way. That's it. I'm flying everywhere. Fuck boats. What a complete tit. What a complete tit. Like, I mean, let's start off. GWS, it's an acronym. You can't have a team that's a fucking acronym. 2, you're playing orange. 3, it's in Sydney. No one gives a shit about Sydney. Fuck him. And I don't swear on this show, but Stephen Coniglio, if you're watching, get fucked.
Yeah, it's a tough time, mate. He turned down, and is there something to be said about? Do we need to? Should we be worried about our recruiting? I mean, we can't. I mean, look, I'm all for the argument that use the list that we have, and it's going to be okay. And these boys that we've drafted are going to turn into stars, and yes, they will. But I see guys going to Richmond. I see guys going to Hawthorn. I see Collingwood recruiting. I see Essendon recruiting. We haven't quite been able to land that fish that's come out of Gold Coast and GWS in the last 5-6 years. Is there something to say about that?
Not really, no. Let's be honest. I mean, this guy has listened to his sugar daddy, Uncle Gil. I mean, what self-respecting man takes shirtless selfies with another guy and listens to an old middle-aged man who pays his wage? Like, he ain't a bloke for me. Tell you what, he won't get his English passport and he shouldn't get his Australian passport. So I hope Juventus get relegated. And I think we should commend our recruiters, because I actually think we've got a fantastic list. So I did that post last night through tears. If any of you know how hard it is to do maths when you're crying, it's quite hard. It reminded me a little bit, we have this thing in England called a crank, and it's where you masturbate thinking of your ex, and it's called a crank because you're crying at the time. So I cranked out some TPI stats about our list, and I think our list is really good. Like, if you actually look at our list, we've got some fantastic players in there. There's Zach Fisher, Dow, and we haven't seen the best of these guys. And all Cornelio would do would make us get to where we need to be 2 years quicker, but at the expense of probably a lot of midfield time for these boys. So for me, no, he didn't want to come. Fair play. He wanted to stay with his pals in GWS and spend weekends with his boyfriend in Melbourne. That's fair enough. Enjoy it, Stephen. Your Instagram has been wonderful, but now I can block you on Instagram and stop seeing them stupid, moody texts you send. So we move on. I was wrong. My gut was wrong.
Well, that's it. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, we have to move on. You know, all signs were looking good. It was a good fit. It just isn't to be. And, you know, we'll talk a little bit about some potential targets throughout the coming days and the next weeks, and who else we can try and look at. And that's the reality of it. I mean, I know that we've been losing for a while, but I think there is still a little bit of Carlton arrogance left over, and the whole snubbing. Like, you know, I look at Dylan Shield a little bit differently now. Like, who does he think he is, going to Essendon and turning down Carlton for Essendon? You know, so there
Dylan
might be
Shield hurt me more. Dylan Shield hurt me more.
Dylan Shield hurt you more. I mean, the thing with Cornelio, I respect him. You know, well done. You are, he's automatically inducted into the Hall of Fame for GWS. He'll be a club legend there. If they're going to make statues, he'll probably be one of the first, because they needed someone like him, one of their big fellas, to continue on the trend and sign on. So next year, obviously, if they can somehow figure out a way to get Whitfield and Cameron to sign, I mean, how are they going to do it? Really, they can't have both of them. Surely one of them has to go.
Oh, well, you don't know. I mean, like, what's the report today? 1.1 million, 7 years. So, I mean, if you average that out over 7 years, it's probably about our contract. But, I mean, it's just weird things like Adidas do their kit. He signs on as an Adidas-sponsored player. Like, there's some dodgy dealings going on at GWS. But, I mean, I'm just focused on Carlton. Like, who cares? Like, GWS, do what you want. We've got the best young list in the competition. Good luck keeping Whitfield and Cameron with your dodgy money. That's all I can say.
Love it. Paul goes bang. It's good to have you back, mate. Let's quickly do this. Let's go through, and if you're watching here, please feel free to put your comments in. I'll put a link here if anybody would like to join. You are most certainly welcome. We upgraded so we can have up to 4 people on screen. So if anyone wants to have something to say, by all means, get in here. Let's just have a little bit of a chat with the audience about 3 of the names that have been thrown up there. The other bit of news is that we seem to have distanced ourselves from Brandon Ellis. firstly, to the viewers out there, what do you think about the Brandon Ellis situation? Are you not upset, but what do you think? Do you think it could be something else in the making without going for Ellis? And secondly, to you, Dan, what do you think about him?
I like Ellis. I think he's a very solid footballer. Would I say he's a world beater? Probably not. But I do think he's solid. I mean, there's a lot of talk, and I've made a promise with myself like I do every year. Believe it or not, last year I made a promise I won't buy into trade talk. And that went really well, as you can see. But I can't help feel there is something we're not knowing.
Yes.
And I think for us to pull out of Brandon Ellis would say to me there's something else there. And then me being me, I'm thinking, well, Whitfield plays on the half-back flank and pinch hits in the midfield. Brendan Ellis does. Maybe Carlton are going for Whitfield a year early. But who knows? I mean, for me, Ellis, I think he used us to get a contract increase anyway at Essendon and Richmond. So for me, I wasn't sold on it. It wasn't exciting, was it?
I think the whole Coggy chase was probably distracting me a little bit from anyone else, to be honest. Ellis, for me, obviously a premiership player. He's an experienced guy. I thought about him in the same way that I thought about the role that Daisy was playing for us this year. So I thought maybe we are looking at bringing him in to potentially fill that role. Obviously, it's not to be because we seem to have really backed away from that. But there was a comment here that I've just missed it along here. But someone said it makes you, and Dan, you just mentioned it too. You got the feeling like Sauce just does things. Like last year, no one saw Nick Newman at the last minute coming, like the Setterfield move. No one. I mean, I didn't see it anyway. I'm not sure if you did, but there's definitely going to be moves made that we just don't see coming. There could be moves that are done, at the last second when someone doesn't become available and they're going to move to someone else. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. I think the beauty of this time of the year is it's just trade talk, and you can either get sucked into it or you can't. I think what we're trying to do here is just give a platform for us to just come here and talk about it and extract what we need to extract and move on from there and try and put some logic to it all. So anyway, we know that.
Don't do logic. My entire mail on COG was logic. Fucking, your best off viewers just throwing darts and sticking with that. We've tried logic, it failed.
Absolutely. Riley, good evening to you. This is Guys, and I've said it before. He's always loved the club, never thought he'd leave. I'll get to some more comments. Let's get through Martin and Gray. So Jack Martin remains as what would seemingly be the next best name that's available and relevant to us, because Papley doesn't look likely as well. I'll start with the audience as well. Please leave your comments and I'll get to them. Dan, Jack Martin.
The guy's got a real high glass ceiling. He's a really talented footballer. There's no doubt about it. He wants to come to us. I mean, I think when at the start of the week it was number 1 Coggy, number 2 Papley, and we're now deep into the 3rd, 4th, and 5th choice.
Can't wait for Eddie Best to be the next best target.
But for me, and I did say it earlier to a good friend of mine, that Carlton have a history of going after A-list stars and it not working, and then we go for next available and that doesn't work, and then the last choice is someone who's on the fringe at another team. And if you look at the last 3 fringe players we signed, Nick Newman, Marchbank and Plowman, they've all turned out to be pretty good players. So for me, Jack Martin fits the bill. Winger, can play in the forward line, skills galore. So for me, yeah, he's a good pickup. I'm excited about seeing Jack Martin at Carlton.
Yeah. So for me, when it comes to the Jack Martin thing, I sort of, great player, but it's more deeper than that, and a little bit more. I try and simplify it a little bit. So for me, we got how many goals from the small forward position this year, and I'm going to say, well, I mean, if you want to add David Cunningham into the discussion, I guess you could. But I'm going to say we kicked less than 10 goals this year from the small forward position for the entire year. pure small forward. I can't help but feel like individually, can't help but feel that Jack Martin in this group could kick 30 to 35 goals next year. I really think he's capable of doing that. And what we need from a small forward is we know because we know that Teague likes to play a game style where he keeps it in the forward half and gets repeat stoppages. So we know that correlates with Jack Martin's strengths. He's a tackler. He's a goal sneak. I feel like, playing for the Gold Coast Suns would have been difficult. And he's the type of player, and you can use this in a positive light or a negative light. He's the type of player that plays well when a team is going well. So when teams put a tag on him, perhaps, or when a bit more attention goes into him, that's probably where he loses himself a little bit because he doesn't get the protection. But can't help but feel that he would be a really good fit. But then there's the whole other side of things, which is the money. And it's reported, it's different everywhere, but it's somewhere in the ballpark of 600 and 750. It's somewhere around there a year. Now, do you really go and pay that much for Jack Martin? That's probably where I get to a bit of a sticky point, and I've got to really think about it. What do you think?
It's a lot of money, yeah. I mean, it's everywhere from 600 to 750, isn't it? I mean, to answer your question, 41 goals came from players in small forward positions this year.
Yep.
Which sounds higher than it is, but the true problem Carlton Football Club has is goals from midfield and key position players. So for me, I do think Jack Martin is going to add that class. Is he worth over 650k? Probably not, but you do have to pay to get players in contract interstate. I do feel for me, I'd be looking at maybe Dan Butler if we were looking at cheap options. I like him. He's proven as well. But, I mean, the sky's the limit. In the right club, the right mindset, I do think Jack Martin could be a great asset for any of the top four. So I think he's a top footballer. There's no getting away from it.
Yep. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting to see. I am a fan of his. I must say it. I am a fan of his and what he could do. The other spanner in the works as well is that really we haven't quite figured out this whole forward line with the big boys yet. So whether or not that would help them, a Jack Martin could help them, I'm not sure yet. So that's that. Going to be bringing in a guest, very good guest of ours, and that's Riley. G'day, mate.
Good evening, legends. How are you?
Very well, mate. Very well. I was watching you figure out your lighting there. I was watching The Exorcist again.
This tablet is dead set crap, but that's okay.
No, that's all right, mate. It's good to have you on. It's good to have you on. Maybe you could chime in on the Jack Martin situation. What do you think about him?
I heard an interesting analogy on the weekend. If there was ever a player that was like Port Adelaide, it's him. His best is sensational. His worst is downright disinterested and gets 2 touches. Is that down to system and the surrounds that he's in? I think so, because Gold Coast, he's been around there for 6 years and he's been through all the turmoil that's going on up there. And let's be honest, it's basically a plastic recycling franchise at the best of times. I think it's worth a punt at the right price. Would I give up our first-round pick for him? No. Would I give up potentially a player? Because I think we're going to come into a situation within the next 24 months, we're going to have a massive talent squeeze. We're not going to be able to keep everybody. That's just the fact of the matter. Would you look at someone potentially like a Cunningham, like a Fisher, those sort of guys who will have currency and come out of contract in a couple of years? Yeah, I potentially would. That's what I would do before, say, a first-round pick. So at the right price, absolutely.
Yeah.
We need talent in that position.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I think your point about the small forwards and the inconsistency with Jack Martin is valid. It just made me think about the other small forwards out there. I mean, Tipping Woody is definitely like that as well. I mean, when he's going, he's great, but when he's not, he's not. I'm not sure.
There was a stat about that this year, I think, that they remember saying in like the first 12 rounds in wins, he kicked 22 goals. In their losses, he kicked 1. So it's just one of those positions these days, I reckon. Yep,
absolutely. And that brings us to the next, quote unquote target or available player that we could be getting, and that's Sam Gray. So further to your point, Riley, about maybe getting a cheaper option, getting a little bit more value for what we pay. Sam Gray kick 30 goals for us next year.
I think he could, because I think, well, funnily enough, he's from Port Adelaide. Problem with Port Adelaide, they don't necessarily play the way that would favour a small forward, in the sense, outside of Charlie Dixon, they don't really have that presence up there to really force it to the ground, create pressure and allow small forwards to get into contests to be able to capitalise on that. Yes, they play a fast brand of football, but that doesn't necessarily suit Sam Gray that much. So he could as well. He's an option you would look at, and certainly would be for a lower price. So if you want to hold something up your sleeve potentially for 2020, or spread your cap more evenly in terms of who you target, then yeah, it's an option. That higher potential with higher risk. So I guess it depends on what our plan is in terms of where we want to go with that position. But the fact of the matter is, it's our number one need by a mile. We don't massively need midfielders. We need a small forward.
Especially when you know that we're going to be losing for Solo, most likely LeBoy, Jared Pickett's already out. There's 3 gone already. Dan, what about you, mates? Talk to me about Sam Gray. He's probably someone you brought up really early in the year, actually.
Yeah, Stephen Silvani seems to be going through my fantasy draft, and that's our trade structure. So that's concern. But I mean, Sam Gray he's kind of like that perfect squad member. He can play multiple positions. But he's always been that second fiddle at Port. If he came to Carlton and would predominantly have a primary role as a small forward, would that increase his numbers? It's quite hard to say. For me, he's a very good asset to have. I said it last week, though, and I stick by this, that I believe if Cunningham gets his body right, we have got the Tom Papley player. So when you look at him against Geelong, he was causing them massive issues, David Cunningham was. In the pre-season JLT series, he was arguably the best small forward. So to me, Sam Gray is what all good clubs have. They have someone who is class, who can come in and do a job. But for me, Cunningham, we need another primary small forward, like someone who is X Factor. And at the moment, Jack Martin is only the X Factor player available to us. So we have to do it, unfortunately. So for me, Sam Gray, yes, but don't pay a lot. He's a talented boy, but he's not he's not going to be a world beater.
Yeah, fair enough. Then there's the just a few comments here that I'll get to. George has been talking about everyone just calm down. Got the list. That's certainly something you've got to think about as well. Everything's up in the air right now. And I guess just to finish off with Sam Gray, I mean, for him, you know, he knows that it's very public that Ken's probably got, he could have as little as a year. He knows that if they're not in the finals hunt, he's out. And Ken is probably someone that wants a Sam Gray. And that's probably where Sam Gray starts thinking, well, hang on, I don't know where Ken's future lies, therefore I might want to leave. So we might be able to get him on the cheap. But yeah, moving on to the point of, all right, we're good. We went to the draft for the last, 3, 4, 5 seasons. We got these players in. Do we just organically grow the premiership team? It would be a pretty good story, wouldn't it? If we ended up winning a flag with this group without going and getting, a big fish and really chasing one. What do you think? I'll start with you, Dan.
I genuinely think we've made a rob for our own back, though. When we sacked Bolton, the chairman came out and said, when have I ever said something to you? That's not going to happen. The whole football department is built on telling the fans what's going to happen. And they've got to remember, last year they said they were delisting a load of people to get 4 or 5 mid-age players in. That didn't happen. This year, they've been quite public that Piquet is there to be traded for, and they have used the phrase a star. So the problem is now is we have to have a star to make it happen. And we're all in that mindset. Jesus, I was well in that mindset. Cornelio is a star. He's a star footballer. But I'm now of the school of this list is about 2 years from gelling. So all the good teams have players to come in to replace injuries. That's probably something we haven't had this year. with the injuries we've had. We've done very well. So to me, maybe what we need to do is go out and get Sam Gray. Jack Martin is the class we need. And maybe Jack Martin is the best we can go out for. I'd maybe start looking at someone like Sam Powell-Pepper. I don't like him as a bloke, but he's very resourceful in the midfield. There's your big body to help Cripps while the others develop. But we have got Stocker there who's big. So for me, I think this trade thing, we've been focused. I don't think we'll get a star. I categorically think the biggest star we'll get is Jack Martin. I hate to say it.
Yep. No, look, it's a fair point. It's a very fair point. It might be the case. Just bringing on one more very special guest, Mr. Winston.
Jesus, is that Conor McGregor? Oh, no.
Hello, mate.
Hey, Terry, how you going, mate?
Good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, I'm pretty good, mate. I'm just listening to your conversation. Unfortunately, the Coggy train's not going through Pakenham in 2020, but I was just looking at a couple of potential trade rumours. I was just looking at the website and just wanted to get your thoughts on a couple of players that Carlton might be interested in.
Yeah, sure thing.
I was looking at the Sydney Swan Tom Papley, and also the Docker and former Hawthorn gun triple premiership player Brad Hill.
Yeah, so I think
So yeah, just want to get your thoughts on those two players.
Yeah,
Robert,
I mean,
are you deliberately mentioning players that are heavily linked with staying or going? You trying to wind me up?
Yeah, maybe a little bit. Maybe a little bit, brother.
Papley and Hill are not coming to Carlton. Well, it came out today, Cal Toomey, who's a very well-respected journal at AFL.com.au, spoke about how Papley has hit a trigger in his contract where he can sign. He's basically there at the Swans until 2023. It's there in front of him. And nevertheless, even the whispers around Papley were always about if he left, North Melbourne was the spot because of Rhys Shaw. And then with Brad Hill, I don't think really we've ever been in the running for Brad Hill. I mean, it's probably a good talking point. What do you think, Riley, and you guys watching? What do you think about Brad Hill?
From my understanding, he's locked into St Kilda.
Yeah,
that was my thought. And if it wasn't St Kilda, I thought he'd always have a home coming back to Hawthorn. The Papley story killed me today because that was probably for me even more important than Caniglio. So hearing about that, just because of what we need right now, but hearing about that trigger, it's almost impossible to get him. So yeah, we got to look elsewhere.
Dan?
And question, boys, Oh, yeah, go first. Sorry, Dan, go first, mate.
Brad Hill, he's definitely going to St Kilda. If he doesn't go to St Kilda, my wife's heart will break, so I hope he ends up at St Kilda as well. And Tom Papley, you look with that contract extension, you're talking pick 8 and a first rounder next year for him, just to try and prize him away.
Yep.
And for me, that's way too much. He needs delivery into the 50. He doesn't make his own goals. And that is our big issue at Carlton Football Club. The inside 50 efficiency isn't there yet. So for me, no.
And I'll throw another one in there. Obviously, you've already spoken about him, but Brandon Ellis, there's been rumour all year. He's potentially going to be a 26-year-old two-time premiership player coming into next year.
Mate, he won't win that.
Do you raise the price? Because funny things happen come trade week. A lot of things happen within the week. I think he's a player that if you can't get the cog train, he's. I'm telling you, I watch him week in, week out. He runs, he gut runs, he puts little pressure acts on, little taps, just little smart things. Even the way he runs to position and hits up targets, things like that. He's a smart footballer. Do you raise the price? If you've got the salary cap, do Carlton look at a player like Brandon Ellis and say, you know what? Maybe he's not quite the quality of Cogniglio, but maybe with his experience, do you raise the price and make it's too hard for him to leave Tigerland by simply the contract offer Carlton would put on the table?
I feel like Brandon Ellis is one of those players where the conversation will bubble again. I think there'll be another wave of positivity with Brandon Ellis come trade week. I think there'll be some more rumours. I can just see it already. It'll be like a Sammy Edmund tweet that comes out. He's quietly confident that Brandon Ellis has nominated Carlton as his club of choice. I don't know. I mean, the answer to your question is I don't know. I don't know if I would want to pay overs for Brandon Ellis. I don't know if he's got a lot more to give than what he has now. I'm not saying personally that what he's given now isn't great. He's a premiership player. He's a very good player. For the money that we would be offering him to up the ante, for me, I'd be looking at like a Prestia type player to be paid that much.
Okay.
For me, I just think we've got players that'll just be as good, if not better than Ellis in the same position. But, yeah, what about you, Riley?
I think if you're going to go after Brandon Ellis, you're paying as much for that premiership experience of winning 2 flags, because we don't currently really have that on our list. So maybe you try and bring that sort of leadership into the club and that big finals experience. Is he a player, though, that I would pay overs for? Personally, not. Just because there's a lot of players in the AFL that are like him, again, that you can get much cheaper. And it's, with the cap situation, with the amount of money we have supposedly built up, Brandon Ellis isn't the sort of player for me that you want to be paying massively overs with that when you've got other priorities, aka re-signing existing talent that's coming out of contract in 2021. Our captain. So we're going to start thinking about that as well.
Yeah. Off there for a minute, mate. Get you back in a sec. Let's get to the fans, Dan. I've missed out. I'm not sure what happened there.
Jesus, it reminded me of the time that I had a bad trip. Jesus.
I'll get through some comments here. Some talk about the Crouch boys trying to get maybe Brad. I know that you mentioned Sam Powell-Pep. I feel like Brad Crouch would be – I feel like pick 8 for Brad Crouch would get the job done. And I'd really consider doing that. What about you?
Oh, I mean, Sam Powell-Pepper wasn't like an option to trade. It was a player like that, someone big-bodied and experienced. I think what we lack at Carlton Football Club is someone who uses the ball giftily like Murphy. If we had 2 Murphys this year, that would have helped. I think we lack outside run and we lack small forward. So for me, I like the idea of Crouch. He's that experienced. He's a good user. Potentially, he could free up Cripps. You look at the game Cripps has had, where he's dominated. It's because he's up against one other contested midfielder. When he's come against 2 or 3, it's not his fault. Law of averages, you can't beat 2 or 3 men. So for me, we do need another person who is ready-made to take on that responsibility. So Crouch fits the bill. I know there's a lot of Carlton fans who don't like him. Well, I mean, everyone can have an opinion, even if it's uneducated. The guy's numbers in his time in football are astronomically good. He is basically one-off Cripps for inside midfield work. So if you can get him for a good price, he's experienced, he's talented, and you look at how he works well with Matt Crouch. Sam Walsh is Matt Crouch on steroids. So for me, Brad Crouch would be a very good option.
Yep. Very interesting. Rob, just one more quick one from you, mate. Now that we know, obviously, Alice is, we're stepping away from Alice. Who else at Richmond? You're obviously a big Richmond man, but who else from Richmond is in that grey area where you don't know if you're going to be able to keep them?
Dustin Martin.
Mate, good question, but I've been reading articles all day and all out of nowhere, a player who is very consistent. He's a WA boy, Camden McIntosh. He signed a 3-year contract extension earlier this year, and he's only 22 years of age, and he plays that winger role, sort of half-back to wing role, and sort of always reliable. But interestingly, all of a sudden, apparently, he's not really happy with the contract money that he's on, and for that reason, if a club was to pay him more money, obviously, he could be on the move. So there's some other players in the 2s. a lot younger players. Everglades Smith, he's a young Indigenous boy who,
Heard about him.
in my books, a year or two from now, he's got all the talent in the world. He probably would be worth looking at, like as far as Carlton's age demographic. But those are the two players that come to mind, mate. But I don't know. Would it count? Even though, like, I know, look, we're just talking trade rumours here, but would a Camden McIntosh fit into the Carlton bill? I mean, he's that half-backer / winger, and he's a reliable player who can at least match it with his opponent week in, week out.
Not for me personally. I don't think we would need a Camden McIntosh. What about you, Dan?
I would rather get a prostate exam from Edward Scissorhands. But I will throw this out there. Two guys that I do like at Richmond that are on the fringe, that do fit our profile. And I'm only saying one because of our good friend Dane, but the first one is Butler. I love Butler. I think he's a solid footballer. And the second one is Shai Bolton. I know Dane, who's out there, absolutely froths Shai Bolton. So I reckon they're two that probably you would say aren't best 22 at Richmond when everyone's fully fit. Would you agree with that?
Certainly. I'm not sure what's happened to Dan Butler. I've watched his form in the twos, and he's not as convincing as he's been in the last 2 years, in 2017 and 18. And I think just, unfortunately for him, players such as Shai Bolton have just gone past him. And then you look at Liam Baker. He's a young gun, 19-year-old. It's not that he's performing badly at VFL level. Obviously, the Tigers finished on top and playing in the qualifying final this weekend at Punt Road. But, yeah, his form's been pretty good, pretty solid. But these other small-type running players, forwards, are just playing that slightly better than him at the minute. But I agree, Butler would be one that could go to Carlton and certainly be in the best 22, such as Sam Lloyd did when he went across the Doggies at the end of last year.
Awesome. Rob Winston, thank you very much for your time, brother.
No worries, boys. Enjoy the conversation, and hopefully Carlton get the players they require for 2020, mate.
Good luck in the finals, mate.
Cheers, mate. Ciao, boys. Boy and Vendo.
He's a legend. Absolutely.
I don't know if Bob was taking the piss there.
Yeah, I don't know if it was banter or if it was... Anyway.
No, the best bit was when he was like, I know you missed out on the Coggy train, but you can get Brendan Ellis. Don't bully me. Come on.
All right, we're gonna finish this off. We're gonna go through every comment remaining. I'm just gonna go through one by one, just a bit of a Q&A session before we go. So if you have any questions, we're gonna do this again for sure. So let us know if you have a comparison you want to look at, if you have stats you want to know, potential free agents, trade targets, what are their stats, who do they compare to, even if you want to look ahead to the draft. Dan's got everything available, so happy to do that. Riley, if you're here still, I just have to get rid of you because your sound was going wacky. Tell us a little bit about Darcy Cameron from Dane Rawlings. There was another question here or comment here that I want to talk about with you, Dan. It was about Ollie Wines. I'm sorry if I've forgotten your name. I'm not sure who put it up here. I don't know if he's really practically going to be available, but God, he'd be really good for us. Good footballer, yeah, very solid footballer. Yeah. So George is talking here about, what about Ryder? Would you take Ryder for a year? I feel like you would only take someone like a Ryder if you felt like you could win the flag next year. I mean, for me, you know, like, to answer that question before about Darcy Cameron, that has been someone that I have been asking for over a year now as well. It was someone in my draft. So I do agree we probably need a quality ruckman to service us in the interim between Cruiser and TDK. You kind of, for me, if you look at Ryder, you look at Cameron. Cameron has absolutely nailed this year in the NEFL. Like, he's averaging 48 hitouts, 67% to advantage. So he is primed and ready.
He's averaging over a goal a game. So this guy, for me, Cameron, would be my number one get for Carlton Football Club because he's the perfect age, 4 years' time, 4 years of service, TDK. But, I mean, anyone who's interested in Darcy Cameron, he's averaging some insane numbers. So he's averaging 20 touches, just over 38 hit-outs. If you count the games he's started as ruck, it's actually 48. And he's averaging over 1.3 goals a game from ruck. So this guy is TAFE Brodie Grundy.
Yeah, interesting. So I'm just getting the notification here. Cripps has officially been announced as an All-Australian. So well done to him. That's fantastic news. We'll get through some of these. Jeffrey O'Day says, Brad Hill's a running machine, but he's unaccountable now. Scotty says that Hill to St Kilda is what I heard. Hence the list clean out in one hell of a hurry. Arik says nothing's impossible regarding Papley if the Swans need an early pick. John, as long as we can get players to make us better and fill the holes in our side, don't care about bringing any stars in the game. I like this sentiment. It's good. It's good that we have this ability to think like that. I just think naturally we're going to have 5 or 6 players that won't be with us anymore. You've got to replace them. I know we're going to the draft, but I think we've only got 4 picks or 4 in the draft, so 5 picks in the draft. So it's interesting. Anthony Walsh is asking about Isaac Smith. Don't know. Few conversations have been had. Yeah, a few conversations have been had about him, haven't they?
I mean, for me, all honesty, I'm not just licking my wounds. I do believe that our list is there or thereabouts. So what we need now is some solid reinforcements. So for me, a hard inside midfielder and a couple of quick picks, quick players, we're laughing. We're really laughing.
Yep. Nate Thompson, we could get Gray and maybe Carl Amon in a deal. Maybe otherwise it would be nice.
I like Carl Amon. I do. I'm a big fan of Carl Amon.
Yep, absolutely. George says, if we start paying big bucks now, mark my words, in years to come, our players will be targeted to leave. Yeah, I mean, of course, we are definitely in that realm now that our kids are coming good of becoming a GWS type situation where, you know, you can go one of 2 ways. Zach Fisher breaks out, gets a massive contract offer to go home to WA. It could be a situation like that. I think the one thing that we have over the Giants is that we're the fucking Carlton Football Club. And, you know, you're not going to get – and you have a captain in Cripps who has come out and publicly said that he would take a pay cut just to get players, you know, in the door like Cornelio. I feel like if that's the language coming out of your captain, others will follow. And therefore, I think that we're not going to have too much of an issue in retaining players because it's kind of like the Collingwood situation. Very rarely do they lose a big name player that's a star for them because it's a big club. They look after their players. And that's what I think what we're fostering at Carlton. So good call. Will Butterworth is asking about Casbolt. Will he leave or will he get 2 years? Dan, I'll start with you. What do you think?
I want him to stay, but I think he'll go. There is a compensation pick should he not be signed. That's due our way, which you would imagine would be just after our second rounder. So there are a lot of things to use. If they're going by the AFL rating system, it potentially could be a pick in the late 20s, early 30s. So if you he's got trade value, and I think we have to look at that. I mean, for me, I do think though all this trade talk, if we talk worst case scenario and say it's Jack Martin through the door, just think of your 22 in the audience with Jack Martin, because you would say that Harry McKay, McGovern, Curnow are a starting 3 in that 6. Cunningham, Jesus and Jack Martin. It's pretty tasty for me, that.
Interesting suggestions here. John wants to know yes or no to Eddie returning. In one word, Dan, yes or no?
No.
No for me. Anthony Walsh is asking about Kieran Jack to get him as an inside midfielder. It's a no for me, personally. Riley's responded here. Darcy Cameron will be a fantastic get. See a bit of him, and whilst his form has dipped a tad, that is because the Swans have not treated him well and played him like they should. George thinks Chera would be a good get. It's not a bad call. Chera reminds me of Dow, Samo, and Fisher. Personally, I don't know. I think he's going to be a good player. I don't know. I don't know about going out of our way to get him though. That's my opinion. But make no mistake about it. He's a very solid footballer. He's going to be a solid footballer. A few Brad Crouch comments in here. David thinks we need speed in the middle. Nathan says, "What would this mean?" Got a notification from the club, mate. It means Cripps is an All-Australian, the All-Australian GOAT. Sean Costello, regarding Papley's trigger clause, surely that's his option to exercise. Do we know whether he has? No, we don't. We don't, Sean. We don't know whether he has. We know that the trigger's been met. We know that he said after the round 22 game that he wants to be a Swan next year. So, yep. Riley, for reference, the NEAFL have some of the big men in the state leagues. P.S. Apologies for the sound tablet issues. No worries, mates. No worries at all. Scotty says, nothing on mainstream media yet. Management said he was considering his options. George says, let's trade Phillips. What would you get for Phillips on the open market, George? I'm not sure. There is an argument to be made that Phillips is the conduit between Cruiser and TDK. But we'll see how that one plays out. Nathan Thompson, who would we use as trade bait? Sorry to bring this up, but I feel like there are a few we could. It's a good question. I think we'll dedicate an episode to this in the coming days, so stay tuned for that. George, 2 picks, a rookie upgrades. Riley, I know I'm repeating myself here. Justin Dwyer is asking for Shai Bolton. Interesting. Josh is talking about Ed Langdon. Big, strong male is that he's going to the D's, I believe. So that's that. Yes, Peter Vlahos confirmed. Kerr going to stay. MB, they will trade him. I'm not sure what you said there, Will. Maybe just clarify that. Tate White, I love silly season, 100 things every day. Oh, it's the best, mate. It's the best. It's the best of the worst part of footy. John, just have this feeling Sauce has something up his sleeve. I love Stocker move on draft night that shocked everyone. Absolutely. I think that's what he does every year. He does something, and we just got to trust in him. I think we're starting to see the wheel turn on this big bad boy, this great football club. So let's just put the faith in him. That's it for tonight. A reminder about the show on Saturday night, 7 p.m. There's no footy on. It's the awards night. It'll go for about 45 minutes to an hour. We're going to get all your votes from all the videos that we share. Please put a comment with who you think will win the specific award, and then we will announce the awards as voted by you, the audience, on Saturday night. So thank you very much for those who joined. Dan, thank you very much for all your work. I've got to get through all these notifications because your bloody video is going viral. If you haven't shared the video, share it. Share it amongst your friends and other AFL pages. Let's see if we can get Dan's video viral, and we'll go from there. Have a good night, people.